Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the SFX Loop. This week I'm going to do another collection, video. I've done a couple of them so far. I did the Scream Factory, I did my Arrow, and a few other random ones that were in there with it. I am going to go into the Criterion Collection for this particular episode. So this, because of the way I have them organized on my shelf, it's going to be Criterion, then it's going to be a few Twilight Times, my Kino collection, Kino Lorber, and then after the Kino Lorber, I have my Olive collection. That's the way I have it on the shelf. So I'm going to do those two shelves and give you all that. Slowly working my way through kind of like my best of bookcase here. I have other stuff on the side, but it's just kind of like the regular production stuff that's all in the other cases. But this is kind of like the good stuff, basically. So this episode is going to be Criterion Collection, Twilight Time, Kino, and Olive. So here we go. Okay, so here goes. I hope there's enough light here. The camera light, my little camera light, isn't working as well as it had been, so got some issues. But we're going to start with this now. I'm just going to go across row by row like I usually do. Here we go. So for the first one here, we've got America Lost and Found, the BBS story. This is Criterion. This is Blu-ray, and it's Head, Easy Rider, five Easy Pieces, Drive, He Said, A Safe Place, The Last Picture Show, and The King of Marvin Gardens. This is the BBS stuff. It was a company from the 70s that was very popular. Some movies, it's got Jack Nicholson was involved in a lot of that stuff. Those are really cool movies, actually. I personally, the Monkees movie Head is all right. Easy Rider is awesome. I love Easy Rider. Five Easy Pieces is a great movie. Last Picture Show, of course, is awesome. And The King of Marvin Gardens. Those are like my favorite ones out of all. They're all good, but those are my favorite ones out of the bunch. Okay. And then we have the Before trilogy. And my thumb out of the way there. This is the Richard Linklater movies. This is Before Midnight, Before Sunset, and Before Sunrise. These movies are actually cool. I really liked Before Midnight when I was... Wait, is it Before Sunrise? Wait, which one's the first one? I haven't watched these in a while. But yeah, I really enjoyed these movies. When I first saw the original, Before Sunrise, that's what it was. It was just a cool movie, and I like how Richard Linklater actually followed along with the story of that character. So that's cool. This is Blue Velvet. Not much needs to be said about this. David Lynch, freaking awesome movie. This is the Blu-ray version. There is a 4K coming out. Of course, have to have Citizen Kane. This is the 4K version of Citizen Kane. I actually put the discs into these Blu-ray cases right next to it because this case is terrible, and it's a scratching discs nightmare. So I had to return it like twice to get discs that weren't scratched. So I didn't put them back inside the case. I stuck them in regular Blu-ray cases next to it. This is one of my all-time favorite films, another Richard Linklater movie, Dazed and Confused. This is Criterion still, and this is 4K as well. This is just a great movie. Along the lines of American Graffiti, that type of stuff. Elephant Man, David Lynch. Really cool. It's awesome to finally have a really good version of this movie. It's just one of those movies I grew up watching on TV as a kid, and it's just a really kind of sad, crazy story. And it's interesting that it's a David Lynch movie. It came after Eraserhead, which was right here, actually, Eraserhead. And there's a lot, stylistically, there's a lot of Eraserhead in it, even though it is a narrative drama type story. Here is Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wes Anderson, cool movie. Unless otherwise stated, these are Blu-rays. 4K version of The Beatles, Hard Day's Night. I love this. This is my favorite Beatles movie. All right. Hedwig and the Angry Inch. This is a really cool, just 90s kind of independent film by John Cameron Mitchell. And this has been turned into a musical and all kinds of stuff too, but that's the original movie version of it. I like this right here. This is 5 films by John Cassavetes. I became kind of a big John Cassavetes fan because I had a friend of mine who was really into John Cassavetes. It's got Shadows, Faces, Women Under the Influence, which is awesome. Killing of a Chinese Bookie is awesome. And Opening Night. Very cool set. All right, so we got Lost Highway. Finally, an American release of Lost Highway that's 4K. This is kind of crazy. Not David Lynch's best film, but actually I've always enjoyed it. It doesn't make hardly any sense at all, but Monterey Pop, the complete Monterey Pop, actually, that has tons of stuff on it. It's got the films. It's got Jimmy Plays Monterey and Shake Otis at Monterey, plus the Monterey Pop as well. All right. Another Wes Anderson film. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan. Like, sometimes it's hard to tell which way I'm supposed to go with these cases. Moonrise Kingdom, which is a really cool Wes Anderson. I feel like this is almost like the last good Wes Anderson movie, Moonrise Kingdom. But, you know, that's personal preference, of course. It depends on what you like. Another David Lynch film, Mulholland Drive. This film is 4K as well. This is a 4K release, right? Yeah, I got the 4K version. This is my favorite Robert Altman film, Nashville. This is an awesome release. There is a 4K transfer of this that was put up on Paramount Presents. However, I don't really have much of a problem with this. This is fine. It's very, very watchable, and everything's going to fall. Repo Man. I love this movie. Classic 80s movie, 1984, with Emilio Estevez. Weird alien punk rock kind of thing going on. Scanners, David Cronenberg, really cool. This was a bit controversial when it came out because of the transfer. It was different color timing and whatnot, although I think it looks great. Silence of the Lambs. This is the Criterion release. There is a 4K version of this, but it got goofed up a little bit, so I honestly think this is probably the best way to own it, is just to have the Criterion Blu-ray. That's, you know, if you're going to watch it, it looks great. Slacker, Richard Linklater. I love Richard Linklater. Big fan, so more of that. 4K release of Thelma and Louise, which is an awesome movie from the 90s. Classic. Ridley Scott, right? Yes. All right, now everything's falling over, so here we go. Trying to get this stuff to stay up. True Stories by David Byrne. This is a really cool movie made by the guy from the Talking Heads. It's just a really interesting, fun, just weird little movie. Kind of Lynchian in its own way. Kind of Twin Peaksy, actually, oddly enough, in its own way. And here we go. We got Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. I do have this. I also have the Twin Peaks set that came out that has Fire Walk With Me on it. But I just wanted the individual release because there's some sync problems with that set anyway, and that the individual release fixed the sync problems in the movie. Videodrome 4K, awesome. This is a really cool set because they made it look like a tape, which is pretty freaking neat, actually. Okay, on to the next shelf. This is actually where it starts to be alphabetical order. The front shelf, I had the box sets. I did that with the other shelves too, where I had box sets and oversized cases kind of in the front, basically, like the weird size cases. So now this is all my other Criterion releases, alphabetical. So here we go. Another Robert Altman film, Three Women, which is an awesome Robert Altman film. Has Shelley Duvall, Sissy Spacek, and who's the third woman? Is she even listed on the back? Which is kind of funny that she's not, because she is. But this is a really kind of just a cool 70s movie. I've always been a big fan of it. I don't know if there's any newer versions that have come out. After Hours, I love this movie. This is Martin Scorsese. This is a classic film. It's a 4K release. It's just a great movie. Kind of like a comedy from Scorsese, which is unique because you don't see it too often. All That Jazz, another cool movie by Bob Fosse film. This is a musical, technically, but it's kind of a modern musical. It's got Roy Scheider in it. Stanley Kubrick here. Barry Lyndon, which is really kind of neat. This is a good Stanley Kubrick movie. One of my favorite Stanley Kubrick movies, actually, aside from like The Shining and all the obvious ones. The Stanley Kubrick's latter film era is my best. Being John Malkovich, which is just a great movie by Spike Jonze. I don't know, did Spike Jonze even make any other movies? I don't know. He might have. I haven't really kept up his career, but I really like that movie. Being There this is Hal Ashby. This is the guy who made Harold and Maude, which you'll see I have that, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a really cool movie with Peter Sellers and And who else is in this? This has Shirley MacLaine. That's who it is. Classic Russ Meyer, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, baby. This movie is awesome. It's a lot of fun. The Carrie Nations, this is just a crazy little movie. This is all still Blu-ray right here. Like I said, I'll let you know if it's 4K. The Big Chill, one of my favorite 80s, like, adult dramas, I guess you could say. Who made this movie? This movie was made by Lawrence Kasdan. So, yeah, this is just a good movie from the 80s. I've always been a fan of this movie. And yeah, it's odd that I used to watch that when I was a kid, being that it's kind of an adult film, but I just liked it for whatever reason. You used to show it on TV all the time. The original Blob with Steve McQueen, right? Yes, Steve McQueen. I also have the remake from Shout up there. I love the original, though. Blood Simple, the Coen brothers. This is an awesome movie. This is a classic early 80s movie, like their first... Actually, this is the Coen brothers' first film, and it shows it's a really cool kind of independent movie, you know? So, I think that's coming out in 4K too, which I'm eventually going to want to get. Blowout, this is actually a 4K right here. This is De Palma. This is actually one of my favorite Brian De Palma films. It's awesome. This movie and Carrie are great. And of course, Scarface. Who doesn't love Scarface? But Bottle Rocket, Wes Anderson's first film. This is a cool film too. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan, but I like his earlier stuff better than the newer stuff that he's been putting out, like his first couple of movies. Bowling for Columbine, Michael Moore. I had a Michael Moore phase. I was really into like Michael Moore movies, and this movie's actually still really good. It holds up. Some of his later stuff has become a little bit too, I don't know, one-sided. But his earlier movies were actually cool, like Roger and Me, Bowling for Columbine, those movies. Boyhood, this movie's cool. This is Richard Linklater as well, and it's just a really cool movie by Richard Linklater that follows the life of this character. Interesting movie because it was filmed with the same character playing the young boy, and they actually just filmed it throughout the course of his life, which was cool. So the movie took quite a long time to be filmed, but it's actually a really cool idea. Brazil, Terry Gilliam, awesome movie. Yeah, I like some of Terry Gilliam's stuff. I do like Time Bandits, although Time Bandits for me, I get bored with. Though Brazil was pretty awesome. Breakfast Club, John Hughes, classic. We need a 4K of this, although this is a great release anyway. The Brood, baby. Some more David Cronenberg. Awesome David Cronenberg film, classic 80s film. This is another one where David Cronenberg likes to mess with the color timing of his like newer releases. But Carnival of Souls, Herc Harvey, which is a cool movie actually. This is a new 4K digital scan, but it's not a 4K release. It's just a regular Blu-ray. Cooley High. This is actually a really cool 70s movie. Like, kind of has an American Graffiti kind of vibe going on, where it's just about these kids just in the 60s. So they used to call it the Black American Graffiti. Although I think it's just a fun movie, kind of coming of age story. It's a good movie. Darjeeling Limited, which is another Wes Anderson film. Good film. I like this one with Adrian Brody. This is still during his good era, as far as I'm concerned. Documentary on David Lynch called The Art Life. And this is a really cool documentary, actually. It really just focuses on David Lynch's like paintings and stuff, but it's a really good movie. Let's see. Down by Law, Jim Jarmusch. I had a phase. I went through this Jim Jarmusch phase, and I like this movie. This movie's really good. Actually, I like quite a few Jim Jarmusch movies, but some of his later stuff gets a little bit pretentious, I guess you could say. Eating Raoul, classic Paul Bartel comedy from the 80s. Just a great movie. It's up there with like John Waters style comedy. Those type of movies. Election by Alexander Payne. This is a really cool movie. I saw this movie in the movie theater when it first came out, and it's just a lot of fun with Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon, and it's just a weird movie that probably wouldn't be made nowadays because it's about a guy having an affair with his like high school student, so it probably wouldn't come out. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, classic. Here we go. Amy Heckerling, Cameron Crowe. This is just awesome. It's great that we finally got like a good release of this. It even has all the extra TV footage. I remember seeing all the extra TV scenes when I was a kid. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is another Terry Gilliam film. This is coming out in 4K, actually, which I'm probably going to want to pick that up at some point. Then we go into some John Waters here, which I love John Waters movies. Female Trouble, classic, complete trashy early John Waters film. A lot of fun. This is cool. Some documentaries by Errol Morris. I really like Errol Morris' stuff. Vernon, Florida is great. Gates of Heaven, it's about a dog cemetery, but like a dog mortuary, basically. But Vernon, Florida is just really, it's just a cool movie. All right, sorry. This is actually one of my favorite movies right here, Ghost World. This is really cool. Terry Zwigoff, Ghost World. This was based on a comic by Daniel Clowes that my friend Peter Lambert was really into Daniel Clowes' comics. We lived in Chicago, and I actually read the comic that they based that movie on. It's pretty close to the movie, actually. Rolling Stones' Give Me Shelter, the classic film documentary that was made by the Maysles brothers that shows the whole situation that happened at Altamont with the Rolling Stones, which is kind of disturbing. The Graduate, classic, Dustin Hoffman, great movie. Honestly, a lot of movies have taken from The Graduate. Grey Gardens, this is such an awesome documentary. This is the Maysles, where they basically, there's these women that were living in this dilapidated old house, and they were like these old socialites from the early 20s and the 30s, I think. And yeah, this is just it. This was done in the 70s, and he went to talk to them, and they talked about their life, and it's kind of depressing, the conditions they were living in, but it's actually a really interesting, because the character Little Edie is so eccentric. She's basically become like this cult icon. But Harold and Maude, which is one of my favorite movies of all time by Hal Ashby. I love this movie. The soundtrack is great. Ruth Gordon, Bud Cort. Oh man, the soundtrack is so good with Cat Stevens, Yusuf, whatever you want to call him. Honeymoon Killers, another cool movie. This is just like a really cool like crime drama movie, but it's black and white, and it was filmed in the 60s, and it's really cool. It follows the Honeymoon Killers, I guess is what they were called. It's based on a real life story. Hollywood Shuffle, baby. This movie is awesome. I love Hollywood Shuffle. This is a funny Robert Townsend film. Basically, it's kind of about the struggles of a black actor in Hollywood, but it's done in like a very comedic way. It's kind of skit based with a lot of like little skits and stuff like that. Hoop Dreams, which is an awesome documentary about just basketball in general. It's about this. It follows the life of this kid who wants to become a basketball player from when he was young, all the way up. And we shot on video. It's a really cool, really great movie. Big documentary fan, because I made my own documentary about a band that I was in called Room 18, called The Final Episode, which you can watch that documentary if you want to on the Roadkill Entertainment page, which is linked at the bottom of this one. But yeah, I'm a big documentary fan, so that's why I have that. I Want to Hold Your Hand. This is a great movie, and I was really kind of unaware of this movie. It was presented by Steven Spielberg, and it was made by Robert Zemeckis. This is one of Robert Zemeckis' first films. Him and Bob Gale, Back to the Future, that bunch. It's all about a bunch of kids who want to go see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and it's all about them trying to get in there. It's like this big crazy adventure, it's a silly movie. It's a lot of fun. The Ice Storm by Ang Lee. This is a really just good movie, and it's just a really weird movie. It takes place in Connecticut in the 70s, and it's all about this like family that has issues, but I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's a family drama that takes place in the 70s, and it's a really good movie. Inside Llewyn Davis. This is another Coen Brothers film, which I'm a fan of the Coen Brothers. I love this is all about the kind of like the 60s folky kind of like scene, that kind of stuff. Klute, which is awesome. Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland. This is a cool mystery thriller from the 70s. It's cool that they actually put this out. I love this movie. I've always La Bamba. This is the story of Richie Valens, and it's just it's a cool movie. I don't know, who knows if it's an accurate version of the story, but I've always been a fan of the film. There's a lot of movies here. The Last Waltz, this is 4K version of The Last Waltz, the Martin Scorsese film, which is basically a document of the band's last concert, which is awesome. This 4K version is great. Let's move a little faster here. The Life Aquatic, another Wes Anderson film. Good stuff. Bill Murray is awesome in that. Lost in America, I love this movie. I watch it all the time. Albert Brooks, Julie Haggerty. It's just about these two kind of corporate types who decide to drop out of society, and how it pretty much messes up their lives, but I don't know, weird. Love Streams, this is, I think this is John Cassavetes' last film. I'm not sure if it's his last film or not, but it's made in '84. But this is a good John Cassavetes film. It's a late John Cassavetes film. I think it is his last film, actually. Midnight Cowboy, classic right here. Midnight Cowboy. This isn't 4K, is it? No, it's just a regular Blu-ray. I don't think this has come out in 4K yet. No, it hasn't. Classic 60s movie. Another John Waters movie. This movie for years was unavailable and very hard to find. Multiple Maniacs, classic. Too bad we can't get Mondo Trasho, but that's another one that's, who knows. Mystery Train, Jim Jarmusch. This is really cool. This has this whole Elvis vibe, and it takes place in, I want to say, Nashville. I don't know where it takes place. It's this weird thing about, it's got this Elvis vibe going on. That's all I know. It's a bunch of short stories, like different intertwined like stories. Night of the Living Dead, 4K. This is an awesome 4K release. This looks beautiful. And I love Night of the Living Dead. And it's so cool that it actually finally gets some kind of like respectable release. It's another Jim Jarmusch film right here, Night on Earth. I think this is one of my favorite Jim Jarmusch films, actually. It's a bunch of short stories and all about just this cab driver, right? It focuses on cab drivers or something like that. But I haven't seen it in a while, but it's a really good movie. All right. So here you go. Pink Flamingos. John Waters Trash. This is a rough movie, but it's a comedy. It's a shock comedy, and it's funny if you're into that kind of thing. It's probably horribly politically incorrect by today's standards. The Player, Robert Altman. I love Robert Altman movies, and this is a really good Robert Altman film. Another John Waters film, which I love, Polyester. This had a scratch and sniff card when it played in the movie theaters. This is awesome. Big fan of John Waters, if you can't tell. And David Lynch, too. Punch Drunk Love, Wes Anderson, which is... Oh, Paul Thomas Anderson, sorry. Ugh. Whatever. Yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah, I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan, too, like Magnolia and Boogie Nights and stuff like that. Raging Bull, Martin Scorsese, 4K. This is awesome. Classic. Not much needs to be said about that. This is an older Criterion, Repulsion, Roman Polanski. This is a great movie. This is up there with like Night of the Living Dead and some of those classics. Reminds me a lot of like Carnival of Souls from the 60s as well. The Rose with Bette Midler. This is pretty freaking awesome as well. The Rose kicks butt. It's just a great movie. It's kind of based on the life of Janis Joplin, but not really. But it's actually just kind of cool. It's based on Janis Joplin. The Royal Tenenbaums, another Wes Anderson film, correct? Yes. It's weird. It's Paul Thomas Anderson and Wes Anderson, but they're not related, I don't think. No, they have nothing to do with each other. All right, this is a Francis Ford Coppola, Rumblefish. This is based after an S.E. Hinton novel, which I was a big fan of the S.E. Hinton novel growing up. I've read all those S.E. Hinton books, like The Outsiders and stuff like that. Rushmore. This is another Wes Anderson. This is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. This is what got me into Wes Anderson. This is just a cool movie. It's just a lot of fun. I don't know about this kid who goes to Rushmore Academy and he's just obsessed with this teacher, and Bill Murray's in it too. It's just a good movie. Shallow Grave, Danny Boyle, Trainspotting, which I still have to get Trainspotting for that matter. I don't have that one yet, which is awesome because Trainspotting came out in 4K. Shortcuts, more Robert Altman. This is an awesome movie. This and Nashville are kind of tied from like my favorite Robert Altman films. Sid and Nancy. This is awesome. This film by Alex Cox, the guy who made Repo Man, actually. And this is just a really cool movie about Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen, and it's pretty accurate from what I can gather. It's about the Sex Pistols and whatnot too. Sisters, Brian De Palma's very first film. Well, one of his first films. I think he did something right before this, but this is like his first known film. This is really cool. It's just this weird psychological thriller, kind of in the vein of some of Raising Cain, like which he made years later. Smithereens. I like this movie. This is just a cool movie by Susan Seidelman, the lady who directed Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna. This is like one of her first movie, and it's just this weird little like indie movie. It's got Richard Hell in it, right? I think, yeah, Richard Hell is one of the main characters in it, and it's a cool movie. It's very kind of indie. Shows New York in the early 80s, like the punk rock scene. Is kind of cool. Something Wild. I love this Jonathan Demme movie. I've been a fan of this ever since I saw it on late night TV as a kid on CBS. Stranger Than Paradise, another Jim Jarmusch film. This one's cool too. These early Jim Jarmusch films are really cool because they're kind of like these weird little independent like just think pieces. I don't even know how to describe them. Straw Dog, Sam Peckinpah, classic. This is another one that is controversial for a specific sequence in it that's kind of like I Spit on Your Grave. Those type of movies. But it was controversial for that. Streetwise, this is awesome. And it also has another documentary called Tiny, the Life of Aaron Blackfell. The Life of Aaron Black. It's all about this girl. She was like a street kid in the 80s. And this is a documentary about like homeless street kids. And it's just a really cool documentary, actually. And I saw it growing up. And it's kind of neat that it actually got released. It's really cool that they put it out. The Thin Blue Line, some more Errol Morris. This is a documentary about real life events to deal with as a Dallas police officer sent to death row despite evidence that he did not commit a crime. It's just a really cool documentary, but Errol Morris style. If you're familiar with Errol Morris's documentaries, he's got this quirky kind of like almost comedic way of looking at things. So yeah, one of my favorite movies from the 80s, Tootsie. This movie is great. Who directed this film? Sidney Pollack, which is awesome. I like Sidney Pollack's movies. He made a lot of really cool movies like The Electric Horseman, which is awesome. I've always liked that movie. Tulane Blacktop, Monty Hellman, classic movie, which is basically it's James Taylor and Warren Oates are the main two characters. James Taylor is a main character in this movie. How random is that? Right, and that covers Criterion. So now we're on to Twilight Time, which I only have a few of these left because most of these have come out in better versions, but 9 to 5, classic movie. I love this movie from the 80s. Another great 80s film right here, Breaking Away, which is awesome. Let's see. I'm going to go a little faster because we have a lot to get through here. Buddy Holly's Story with Gary Busey. This is an awesome movie. It's just a really good, I don't know, kind of biopic. Don't know if it's really accurate, but I like it. Murphy's Law. This has come out by, I think, Shout or Scream, but it's pretty much the same transfer, so I've never really updated it. But this is a great Charles Bronson, classic Charles Bronson movies from the 80s. To Sir with Love. I just love this movie. This is just a classic movie about a teacher who has to teach kind of like the bad kids, basically. And it's 60s, so the bad kids aren't as bad as they would be nowadays, that's for sure. All right, now we're into Kino. We got a lot of stuff here, so here we go. So Kino, we've got Living Dead Girl, Jean Rollin. These are older ones. I had these a long time ago. Black Sunday, Mario Bava, classic. See, this is all my Mario Bava collection. That's why it's in the front. Black Sabbath, Mario Bava. Some of these have gotten newer releases, better releases, but I haven't really upgraded them yet. Bay of Blood, which is cool. This movie's known for Friday the 13th Part 2. Pretty much ripped off a sequence from that movie. Barren Blood, I love this movie. These are all Mario Bava. My Mario Bava collection. I always loved Lisa and the Devil, which is a cool movie. House of Exorcism is just a different cut of Lisa and the Devil. I've just been a fan of that movie for years. Kidnapped. This is Mario Bava's last film. This version was put together. I think it was like an unfinished film, and his son Lamberto Bava actually finally put the movie together. So it feels like a Lamberto Bava film instead of a Mario Bava film. But Frightmare, Pete Walker. These movies are fun. These are like lurid British horror movies from like the 70s. They're pretty cool. All right, now we get into the regular Kino Lorber stuff. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies, The Beguiled. It's just a really weird movie. It takes place during the Civil War, and Clint Eastwood ends up at this like home for girls and basically tries to bed all the girls, and yeah, and it just gets it gets crazy. It just has one of these like twisted endings. Burnt Offerings, one of my favorite Dan Curtis films. I love this movie. If you watched my thing on TV movies, you'll know I mentioned Dan Curtis with Trilogy of Terror, and that's one of my favorite films. Bustin' Loose, Richard Pryor. Nice. I like that. The classic 80s Richard Pryor comedy. An early one, too. Career Opportunities. This is kind of a random John Hughes movie, but it's not directed by John Hughes. It's directed by a guy named Brian Gordy, but John Hughes wrote it. So it's technically a John Hughes film. So we got two here now. Certain Fury. Here we go. We got Tatum O'Neal and Irene Cara. This is like a weird action film from the 80s. It's a lot of fun. The Chicken Chronicles with Steve Guttenberg. This is a coming-of-age film, kind of along the lines of like Brighton Beach Memoirs, like that kind of thing, but a little bit raunchier. Okay? So let's try to go a little faster here. Code of Silence, Chuck Norris. Good stuff. Classic Chuck Norris movie. I love this movie. Convoy. It's about truckers in the 70s. It's awesome. It's a great film. We have the 4K release of Cujo, which is awesome. This is like one of the most terrifying Stephen King adaptations ever put to film. If you don't like crazy dogs, rabid dogs, you're not going to like that. 4K Death Wish. One of my favorite series of films is Death Wish, actually. 1, 2, and 3. I love all 3 of those movies. DC Cab, one of my favorite films from as a kid. I used to watch this movie all the time. It's just classic. Fun. Not the greatest transfer, but not bad. Deranged, the story of Ed Gein, which is kind of like what they based the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on, but it's not. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is nothing like that, actually. And Desperately Seeking Susan. We were just talking about Susan Seidelman. She directed this. This is a fun movie from the 80s with Madonna. Dressed to Kill, 4K Dressed to Kill, Brian De Palma. Actually, I think one of Brian De Palma's best films. Enter the Ninja. This is part of a Ninja trilogy, which I have all 3 of mixed up throughout here somewhere. This is Gosho Kazuki. I like that stuff. Escape from Alcatraz, 4K, awesome. Clint Eastwood, based on the guys who really escaped from Alcatraz. So there you go. Foxes, this is awesome. I love this movie with Jodie Foster. This is like a female over the edge. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a good movie about a bunch of girls in the 70s. It's really cool. Early 80s, actually. The Good Son, Macaulay Culkin, cool. The Thriller, let's see. Hardcore, George C. Scott. This movie is messed up, this Paul Schrader film. This is a classic 70s movie about a guy who's very religious and his daughter takes off and gets involved in porn and he has to go find her. It's a cool movie. 4K version of Hannibal, which is awesome. Some ways I almost like Hannibal better than Silence of the Lambs, but Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal are both amazing movies. 4K version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s. Which is the better version, I think. But I love the original, too. We're losing it, abusing it. Curtis Hanson made this movie. This is just a fun movie. It's got Shelley Long in it. Tom Cruise is in this. This is like a teen sex comedy from the early 80s. Manhattan Project. This is a cool movie with John Lithgow and Christopher Collette. Actually, it's got Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City in it. Just as like a kid, basically. Misery, 4K, classic. Love this movie. All right, box set here. Missing in Action Trilogy. More Chuck Norris. Although I like these better than even some of the action Chuck Norris films. Personally, more of a Bronson guy than a Norris guy. But, we all have what we like. Monster Squad, baby. Monster Squad's awesome. This is a 4K version of the Monster Squad. Monster Squad's great. It comes with a documentary on the making of it, which is really cool. Mr. Majestic, this is the Kino version. I know there was another version that came out, but honestly the transfer is pretty much the same on this than all the later versions that came out. My Bodyguard, an awesome movie from the 80s with frickin' Adam Baldwin from frickin' Firefly and shit. Ruth Gordon's in it. Oh, my arm is starting to hurt, sorry. From holding things up like this. Alright. The Park is Mine. This is really cool. This was a movie that was made for HBO. It was showed as an HBO movie. Tommy Lee Jones basically is like this vet who takes over Central Park. And he's takes it hostage basically. Play Misty for Me. Classic Clint Eastwood like psychodrama from the 70s. I love 70s psychodramas. Porky's 2 and 3. I have Porky's 1 somewhere else in this room. I love Porky's. Classic 80s movies before American Pie. Revenge of the Ninja, another one of those Sho Kazugi movies. This Revenge and Enter Revenge and Ninja 3, The Domination was like the trilogy. The River. I used to love this movie as a kid. It's all about a small town that basically the river is going to overflow the town. And it's like a disaster movie about this town. I don't know if it's based on a true story or not. I love River's Edge. This movie is great. It's based on a true life story about a bunch of 80s metalhead kids. It's got Keanu Reeves and Crispin Glover, Ione Skye, a ton of cool people in it. Dennis Hopper's in it. And basically one of the kids killed his girlfriend and he brought all his friends out to see her. Left her dead body there. And so it's a crazy little story, but it's a good drama. Rolling Vengeance. Another awesome revenge movie from the 80s. Secret of My Success. Michael J. Fox, baby. Gotta have that. Serpico. Al Pacino, this is a 4K version. This is awesome. I'm getting a little faster here just because it's like, this video is going to be a freaking crazy long. Silkwood, I love this movie. It's all about this woman named Karen Silkwood, who basically finds out that her company is up to no good, and yeah, let's just say things don't go well for her, and she gets followed. Cher is in it. It's actually a really good movie with Cher in it from the 80s. Smashing Time. It's got Rita Tushingham and Lynn Redgrave, and it's just some crazy, really 60s movie. It takes place in London. London swinging 60s. Some Like It Hot, 4K. This is awesome. I love this movie. This is a great movie. It's probably Marilyn Monroe's best movie as far as I'm concerned. She made a couple movies that weren't so bad. They were all pretty good. They shoot horses, don't they? This is a crazy little movie about this like dance contest that takes place in this big dance hall. Basically, they used to do these things back in like the 30s, and people would just dance and dance and dance until they dropped, and whoever was left was the winner. Tough Turf, a little bit of James Spader. Kim Richards is in this too, which is kind of funny. Up the Creek Without a Paddle. Cheap Trick did that song. Up the Creek is a classic 80s movie. I saw this movie in the movie theater. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't hold up that greatly, but it's a fun movie. Vigilante Force. This is another like vigilante film, revenge film. I love 80s like revenge style movies, if you can't tell. The Wanderers, this is cool. This is another this is like The Outsiders. It's like the anti-Outsiders. It's like a different version of The Outsiders. But, okay. Now we're at the last Kino one here. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo with Shelley Winters. This movie is great. It's basically based on Hansel and Gretel. And it's just a crazy little British style horror movie. All right, now we're into the Olive films. We're almost there. We're almost done here. Beach Street, baby. Beach Street is awesome. I love Beach Street. This and Breakin', man. Classic 80s stuff. Coffee. Gotta have a little Pam Grier in your life. Blaxploitation. Awesome. Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. This is like the first Amicus film. And I love Amicus movies. So. Firstborn. This is a cool 80s movie about a kid who has an abusive father with Terry Garr in it and stuff like that. It's just a good movie, actually. Just always been a fan of it. It's just a good film. Kind of turns into an action movie at a certain point. Foxy Brown, another classic. Pam Grier. I don't know if these actually. I think Arrow put some of those out, but I only have the Olive versions. Olive's not even really a company anymore, I don't think. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original, which is cool. I like this movie, but like I said, I like the 70s one better. Classic 70s exploitation. Joe. This is kind of like a political 70s exploitation film. I always remember this because I was really into Last House on the Left, and like some of the ads for Last House on the Left said right across the street from Joe, because that was what was popular at the time. The Last American Virgin, classic. They did put out another version of this, but it's really the same transfer. 80s, classic 80s sex comedy, basically, if you're into that. Another 80s trashy comedy, Making the Grade with Judd Nelson. This one was good. This is Olive. Some more crazy 80s stuff. Mannequin. Gotta love this. Kim Cattrall and who else? Who's that? That's Andrew McCarthy, right? Yeah. All right, Stephen King, made for TV movie. Sometimes They Come Back. So there you go. Sometimes They Come Back. I saw that when it aired on TV, actually. Tales That Witness Madness. This is a cool anthology film. I'm a big fan of anthology films from the late 70s and early 80s. It's one of them British anthology films. It's good. I think it's one of the Amicus guys, but it's not technically Amicus. Teachers. This is just a great 80s movie about teachers. Nick Nolte, Jo Beth Williams, Judd Hirsch are in it. Just a good 80s movie about teachers. And Ralph Macchio's in it. He has a small role. Him and somebody else. I think Crispin Glover's in it too. Thinner. Stephen King's Thinner. I think this is coming out in 4K, but I'm not sure. This is just a really cool... Tom Holland made this, right? Yeah, Tom Holland. Chucky. Fright Night, you know. Okay, we're almost there. Here we go. Witchboard 2. Because Witchboard 1 and 2 are awesome. And Witchboard 2 is actually really good, too. I like Witchboard 2. I like Kevin S. Tenney movies, actually, in the 80s. And to end it all off, the last olive release here, why not have Zapped, right? This movie's actually fun. Scott Baio and Willie Ames. I didn't see this movie growing up. I saw this movie years later when I bought this, just on a whim. And I like 80s movies anyway, so if you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know. I do the SFX loop now once a month. And regularly it is effects loop, which is guitar related stuff, guitar gear, like amps, gear, pedals, that kind of stuff. So if you like this, awesome. My name is Jay Byrne. This has been the SFX loop. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.